you have hopefully gone the route of making a lifestyle change by changing around your thinking, your eating, and your activity. It's really important when you increase your exercise and decrease your nutritional intake that you don't hit the wall. Hitting the wall can be experienced by most of my runners when they outrun their nutritional availability of carbohydrate. When you don't have enough energy, little packets of energy in your bloodstream, and your muscles are still being forced to go, then the muscles will eventually say, I don't want to go, and you hit the wall. Or you just have this sensation that you get fatigued, winded, short of breath, achy, headachy. So the idea is you don't want to hit the wall. The way to do that is to, number one, ramp up your exercise slowly but efficiently. And also, don't be so tight with your carbohydrate or your volume restriction. Most Americans eat way too much food, but it's also crappy food that is not nutritious. The idea with cutting back on volume is that you have to maintain a diet that's very healthy, mostly a whole food, plant-based diet. The key with post-exercise is that you have this window of opportunity after you've been grooving and in a really steady rhythm with your exercise. You have this window of opportunity to rehydrate and replenish carbohydrate stores. Carbohydrates are what gives your muscle the properties of being able to go and do things. So if you want to prepare for the next time, and that's all this is, you have a window of 15 to 60 minutes in most studies to rehydrate and replenish. So if you go outside that, sometimes, and some studies will say you have about 2 hours to replenish carbohydrates and proteins, but if you go outside that window of opportunity, then the body actually will turn off its utilization and its formation for next time, and you just put it in the wrong way. So you'll still be able to eat and take advantage, but it might be stuffed into, you might be breaking down more protein, or you might be creating more fat, and you don't want that. So let's just talk about the ideals. We'll start with water. It's very important because most young people don't have the proper sense of thirst, or how the sensation actually means you're thirsty. So some of my athletes, my student athletes, don't know that it's time to drink or replenish. My hikers, it's real easy, especially men. If you pee and it's colored or concentrated yellow, then you're not drinking enough fluid. If it's clear, then you're golden. That's two different colors, but you're good. With athletes, I would usually say, when you get into a groove, you weigh yourself either naked or with a dry set of clothes before your exercise routine, and you weigh yourself after your exercise routine with the same set of clothes or naked, whatever you choose. And depending on how many pounds you lose, let's just say you lose 2 pounds. You lose 2 pounds of body water, which is probably what it is. It's probably water, unless you have a bowel movement, but don't throw that into the whole mix. If you lose 2 pounds of body water, then you make up the difference within that window of 15 to 60 minutes by taking in 1 to 2 bottles of water, that's 12 to 24 ounces, for every pound you lose. So if I lost 2 pounds, I'll be taking in 4 bottles of fluid. Mostly water if you can, and no caffeine because that'll make you pee off more. No alcohol, definitely, because that'll make you pee off more. And it's not healthy anyway. So just make it as a rule of thumb, 1 to 2 bottles, that's 12 to 24 ounces for every pound of body weight that you lose after exercise. If you do that within 15 to 60 minutes, you're golden. Number one, if you stay hydrated, the muscles work better to get the lactic acid that formed in the muscle back into the liver, so it breaks it down in the Cori cycle into usable energy. Number two, you also get nutrients that you just you'll eat from your whole food, mostly plant-based diet. Later on in the day, you'll get that to the muscle that's trying to repair itself, the protein synthesis that's occurring. So, and you also get that to the brain. So it's real important to maintain at least that rule of thumb for the fluid part. Next comes the carbohydrate part. Most of us will burn or utilize carbohydrates in the blood, in the muscle, and in the liver to do what we have to do, which is exercise and think. When you're exercising, especially my endurance patients or my endurance athletes, the rule of thumb is usually about 1 gram for every minute of vigorous exercise. And exercise can be broken down into about like a 60 to 70% VO2 max. Without getting into the formulas of VO2 max, you know, if you're exercising to the point where you're talking like you can get a little bit of a sentence out like this, then that's actually pretty good. If you can't even get a sentence out, you're probably exercising too aggressively or too intense. But when you're talking like that, when you're speaking like that, then you're probably getting to about a 60 to 70% VO2 max. And when you're exercising like that, you need to replenish 1 gram for every minute of exercise. That comes out to like a 60-gram carbohydrate load per hour. And that's usually what you have to replenish. The formula for carbohydrate replenishment is 0.3 to 0.6 grams per pound of body weight. So that should be easy for you to translate. I'm about $150, 150 pounds. So when I try to rehydrate, it'll come out to about 60 grams of carbohydrates. So that's what I try to take in within 15 to 60 minutes. And I usually do that with the fluid. I can certainly do it with whole food, mostly plant-based diet. But imagine if I had to eat 2 of these. This is a pomelo. Eat 2 of these after exercise within 15 to 60 minutes. You would probably throw up. So it is easier when you concentrate it, and you concentrate it in the form of liquids. The only problem is the price, and sometimes you can concentrate it into power bars, and you can actually make your own power bars. There's great websites that'll either do them for you, and it comes out kind of pricey, $2.99 I believe for your own. You can pick and choose whatever you want in it, or you have instructions. Even from Livestrong, they have ways you can make your own power bars. And if you can't do that, then go ahead and buy, but you're going to have to invest a lot. And you're going to have to invest in something that has the exact amount or the approximate amount of carbohydrates per pound of body weight for you. And you do that with the water. It actually helps the water get into the body system faster through the stomach. There have been some arguments that liquids versus powders, how do you get it? And really, there's no big difference. It always gets reabsorbed. Now, powders versus pills, usually if you have Crohn's disease or an irritable bowel syndrome or gastritis, the powder will be more easily tolerated than the pill. So you might, if you're a sufferer of that, then you might want to choose powder or liquid form more so. So that's the basic formula, and you want to do that again to prepare yourself and prepare the body for the next time you exercise. Because if you deplete everything in one exercise routine, and you go to exercise and you don't replete, and you go to exercise again either later that day or in 1 to 2 days, you might hit the wall faster the next time you exercise. So you have to be careful about the calorie restrictions, and you have to keep it really clean. The final thing will be the amount of protein you take in. And that's a little bit different, but the basic sense is that if you don't take any protein in, then your muscles, when they're broken down, will continue to break down. Unless there's a protein source around or replenished, then the muscles will actually use the amino acids from whatever you take in and stop the protein breakdown. And plus the other thing too is that if you want to take this much carbohydrate in, great, but sometimes it is more palatable if you take the carbohydrates in a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 of carbohydrate to 1 of protein ratio, and that's in measured units. But that makes it a little bit easier to palate or taste or take in. And then you can usually find that in certain power drinks. Again, the power drinks are a little pricey. If you can afford them, or if you're not sure about the mixtures, or if you're trouble with math and science, just Gatorade has its choices, and you can probably just pick that or Powerade.
In this possible post-exercise nutrition source, 3 servings per container or package, and 9 grams of carbohydrates, 0 grams of protein. Not good. And look, of the 9 grams of carbohydrates, 4 grams of sugar. Here we got 1 bottle is equal to a serving size of this drink. 14 grams of carbohydrates, 0 protein still. And of the 14, which is more carbohydrates than the first one, 12 grams are all sugar. Not good. Although it's probably a lot of high glycemic index sugars. Here you have 1.5 servings per container of this drink. 26 grams of carbohydrates, 1 gram of protein, so you're getting better. But 26, that's way too, I mean, that's a lot of carbohydrates. And of those carbohydrates, 23 grams of sugar, pure sugar. Again, that kind of carbohydrate is probably high glycemic index. It'd get in fast, but it would also cause an insulin dumping reaction. This is a nut butter, one of my favorites. 2 tablespoons per jar. And of the 2 tablespoons, 7 grams of carbs, 8 grams of protein. So protein's getting higher. This is obviously a solid than compared to the others. But you still have 4 grams of sugars of those total carbohydrates. So the last ratio is a drink, and 2 per bottle. 4 grams carbohydrates, 1 gram protein. And remember, this is the best. 4 to 1 has been the best studied. And of the 4 grams, this is 1 gram of sugar, which is still, it's limited, but you want to try to avoid that. So we're talking about, again, a 4 to 1 ratio, liquid form, and this happens to also have spirulina in it. If you can see the active ingredients: culture, spirulina, wheatgrass, ginger, kale, cabbage. Pretty decent. So this is probably my go-to, if you remember the ratios I talked about. I just wanted to show you what each of these labels was. This is dried fruit, coconut water, same order that I went through in the first one. Mango guarana liquid, my nut butter, and then veggie kvass. This is the one that was the best with a 4 to 1 ratio.
You got to pick out good carbohydrates. This is the only time when high glycemic carbohydrates are acceptable to take in when you're exercising or in your post-exercise routine. And I'll put a link to high glycemic and low glycemic foods. But you always want to try to get your post-exercise nutrition from whole foods. But if you can't tolerate the whole food because it's too much volume, then you concentrate it in liquids or powder form. As far as the expensive proteins, again, I would keep the protein to a minimum, like I mentioned, of the ratio. I think you do need some, but the carbohydrate stores are more important. And you'll hear arguments from bodybuilders saying you need a ton of protein. You got to be really careful. The more protein you take in, the more stress you'll ask your liver, because your liver's got to break this stuff down. The liver and the kidneys go through a little bit more stress when they have to break this stuff down. And if you already have alcohol problem or a little bit of, it's called fatty liver, which most Americans have, in addition to prediabetes, you're going to ask your body to take a lot. And plus, it's also very expensive to get that stuff down. So those are the basic facts. Try to stick to it. Anything outside that, you might have to get more counseling or more personal dietary suggestions made with a registered dietitian or a nutritionist. And that's where the investment comes in that coaching. But it's all up to what kind of knowledge you can take in, how much you understand, and what your goals are. So do this efficiently, do it properly, and you'll be able to maintain this thing for the next 12 to 24 months, and then you're on your way to living till 90 without any surgeries and hopefully not too many medicines.